Welcome to the Timmy Willis Show. My name is Timmy Willis, and I'll be your host for today's show. Today we have a very exciting drummer with us today. He goes by the name of Bob Breen. How you doing today, Bob?
Doing good. Thanks for having me on, Timmy.
Thanks for coming on the show. First of all, Bob, I'd like to ask you, what was it about drums that got you interested in the first place?
I think everything. I go back to when my dad used to take us to the St. Patrick's Day parade, and you'd feel the concussion and the percussion and the loudness, and you get to strike them and swing your arms. It's a combination of athletic and sonic. I just loved them. It was an immediate thing, and I always preferred drums to everything else musical.
Now, do you remember how old you were when you first experienced that?
Yeah, probably about 4 or 5. And when I was about 5, I got one of those little toy drum kits that are really not musical instruments, but I used to strap the bass drum on my back and walk around the neighborhood of Avalon on those old concrete sidewalks, beating the bass drum and marching up and down the street like a kid.
You know what, that's interesting because I have a similar story too. I mean, I got interested in the drums the same way, by going to the parades, man. Yeah. And actually, my mother bought me a little blue mesh drum set, and I used to disassemble it. And I gave one of my buddies the bass drum, and I would have the snare, and another buddy the tom-tom, and we would march up and down the street too, man. That's funny how we correspond with that already, you know. But look, did you play drums in school?
Oh yeah, that's when I started to really learn. 7th grade had band, and I was, believe it or not, impacted. I had an older brother, played bass and guitar. And he always had buddies that were musicians, and I just wanted to play music. I didn't care. I wanted to play music. Turned out that the school where I was at needed some kids for drums, so I took drum lessons and started in 7th grade, and we had good teachers that helped us. We learned a lot, and we advanced pretty rapidly, private lessons. By the time I was 14, I was playing in a polka band, although I'm not a polka musician. We made money, and I was into the money because playing drums was a lot better than working McDonald's or gas stations, and it paid a lot more.
Right.
Yeah, it got me started.
Okay, well, what kind of music were you playing in the 7th grade when you was playing in school?
Well, that was your typical concert band with a like brass, woodwinds, percussion, trumpets, trombones, baritone horns, and then that would ultimately we'd go up into the marching band and play halftime shows for our high school teams when they played football.
Okay.
And we had a great band director who is no longer in the living, a gentleman named Danny Poupard, who played most of the shows, like the ice shows. He played the Civic Light operas, and him and our teachers would bring us down and be in the pit, in the orchestras, which was an incredible experience as a young age, to be down there watching Man of La Mancha in the Nixon Theater with my drum teacher then, a man named Billy Price, who went to the Manhattan School of Music, played a lot of Broadway work, and was really good at the orchestral percussion.
Right.
But it just gave us a lot of steam, and they fired us up.
Yeah. Now, which do you prefer? I mean, did you prefer the marching band style, or did you prefer like the symphonic orchestra type of playing, or you like them both?
Wow. They're both so different. I like them both a lot. I loved marching band because as a youngster, you're growing up and you're going through all that stuff, including as you develop, you got so much energy. And you go down the street, you're marching, you're beating your drums, you let out all that energy in a good and positive way. And the friendships in the musical area are, to this day, most of my best personal friends go back to that band.
Oh, okay.
They're all over the country now, but we're still in touch, and the friendships are just cemented together, I think, by doing music.
Right. Now, is it safe to say that being that you were playing those styles of music, that you learned how to read music?
Very safe. It was necessary because you couldn't play what we played unless you could read the parts. And we were lucky we had our teacher who knew a lot of guys from the orchestras he worked in. So we had good private teachers that taught us starting from the rudiments to the more advanced snare drum technique, and then ultimately to playing drum kit. One of the boys was real good on timpani, had an excellent ear. He could tune them good, and we learned some of the xylophone and stuff. So we got actually a pretty good exposure to percussion, though my favorite thing was always playing drums.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. It sounds like took more than just class time. I mean, did you practice at home on your own?
Yes.
Yeah?
I think the neighbors hated it. I had this drum set, and I was playing all the time upstairs in my bedroom, making more noise. But people put up with it, and they were nice. My poor parents put up with it. They were nice. But I loved to play the drums. I still do, and this is 42 years later.
Right. Now, you mentioned rudiments.
Yes.
For like a young drummers that might be watching today, how important would you say rudiments are as far as of someone who wants to learn how to play drums?
I have a feeling they're very important, and I think I've played long enough to the point where I don't think about them, but I've learned them all. And I'm certain a lot of times when I'm playing whatever I'm playing, a rudiment just flows right out because it's the best sticking or the best phrase on percussion that will meet the needs of the music. And it's a relationship now where it's a learned behavior and then it's a hearing behavior. They come together and the body just seems to follow the ear. And you play what fits. But the rudiments are critical before you really know how to play musician-like. That gives you structure, and you can play those things and sound good even though you're not yet matured to where the ear and the music are doing a more artful thing.
Okay, now, would you agree that repetition plays a part in it? I mean, as far as when I say repetition, I mean, say if you're learning how to play a 5-stroke roll.
Yes.
You know, I have a young student now, and I encourage him to play it 50 times. You know,
At
and
least.
then after you play it 50 times, you're just getting warmed up.
Right.
You know, repetition, to get used to playing it that way, you know.
I totally agree, but for a variety of reasons. First, the body gets used to doing the motion and it starts to become a non-conscious behavior where you're grooving. You're not listening and playing ticky-tacky. You're just playing like fluid, like motion without edges and smooth sound. And the repetition is a requirement to get the muscles conditioned to do the work and to get them to do it without any forced necessity of sound where the sound is smoother and sweeter and more musical because you don't have to think about it anymore. You do it.
It's like a natural reaction.
It's a response to the sonic events that are around you. And as my most recent and great beloved teacher, Mr. Joe Harris, I believe taught me in my lessons, I had some chops, but I learned how to listen. And you got 2 ears.
Right.
And that tells you something. You got to take that information in, and as you hear music, the more all that repetition became ingrained in you, the more you just play without thinking about playing the drums. You play by thinking about the total sound of the ensemble, and your drumming then integrates into it without being an imposition on the music. Rather, it sweetens it and punctuates it.
Oh, okay. Now, let me ask you this. How important would you say discipline is? And when I mean discipline, I mean as far as going down the basement and playing on a day that you don't even feel like it, and practicing and rehearsing and going over your lessons and stuff. I mean, to discipline yourself to do that. How important would you say that is?
Very important, especially when we were youngsters. How many distractions? You could go play ball, you could go take a ride, kids would go out and somebody had a car, you could do this, that, or the other thing. And I guess for me it was lucky or fortunate. I really had this passion. I love beating the crap out of my drums and having a good time. I could do that, and I guess it's good for the sanity and the soul. It works out a lot of the frustrations, and it's physical, like playing a sport, so you get a great feeling. But the discipline is also true because when I took lessons, a lot of my teachers had me playing music that I didn't like, but they knew I had to learn how to play music I didn't like to really learn how to play music. Because it's easy to play songs you like.
Right.
But when you're playing something that is difficult, that you're not comfortable with, that you're not familiar with, and you got to learn to play it in a musician-like way, that's discipline. And that brings you up a level to where you're much more of a professional and not just somebody that bashes a set of drums in the garage.
Right, right. Okay, now, Bob, you've played with some of the biggest names in the business. Now, how have you benefited from reading music?
Absolutely. I'll even go to right now. Albeit I'm a volunteer, I'm doing Jesus Christ Superstar with the St. Sebastian Youth Ministries. My son's a senior. We're doing what to me is one of the hardest reading jobs I've ever done. It's Andrew Lloyd Webber. He jumps around from 4/4 to 7/8 to 2/4 to 6/8 to 7/4 to 5/4 to 1/4. And if you can't read music, you can't play this stuff.
Right.
And even a lot of the gigs I've been real lucky to play in some of the nice big bands around Pittsburgh, you show up, they give you a book, they call tunes by the number, you just have to play.
Right.
And you can't fake it if you don't know the tunes. And all of those tunes were written and played before I was around, and without reading capability, a lot of work you could never get. And you even mentioned bands I've been with, and you and I have worked together on shows, like working for the Drifters. They throw a book at you, you get 20 minutes or so to talk with the piano player conductor, and you don't really get to learn it. You got to be able to read it.
Right.
And those are some of my fondest gigs, because those bands have been a blast. I grew up listening to those hits, and I got to grow up and play those hits, and it's been a real cool thing in my life.
Okay. Well, now, you mentioned Mr. Joe Harris is one of your teachers. Who are some of your other teachers that taught you down through the years? Okay,
at the very beginning, my band director had a friend who was mostly an English teacher, but he was an alum of the Pitt Band, and he had been a drummer all his life. He was the rudimental drum teacher. Man's name was Tony Arabia, and he did formations for our marching band and taught the drummers private lessons. We had to pay him, obviously, but he put us in the standard material, which in those days were the Rube Bank, elementary, method, intermediate, etc., but had us learn the rudiments, learn to read the page, and the consequence was we could play in concert band, in marching band, and later we had a jazz ensemble in the high school, and we could get through music that if you can't read music, you could just not participate.
Yeah.
So it's the turnkey to so much extra than just learning by ear.
Right. Well, you know, we talked about playing. At this time, would you like to do some playing for us?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Absolutely.
Okay.
What do we want to do, Timmy?
Yeah, whatever you want to do.
Well,
we're going to fade right here.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to fade to black. Now, we got Bob Breen here on the drum set. He's going to do some playing for us. And our friends at Pianos and Stuff was kind enough to provide him with some drumsticks. I'd like to give it to you at this time.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, our friends at Piano Stuff, our underwriter.
Okay, now, first of all, would you demonstrate the funk beat for us?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right, all right.
And on and on. Funk's pretty wide open.
Yeah.
That's like Tower of Power, Average White Band, James Brown.
Right.
Parliament.
I heard that James Brown in there, man. I feel good.
The Godfather.
Yeah. Oh, what about salsa? Something a little different.
Well, let's go salsa. We're going down south of Mexico, salsa. Mostly, what would that be? Cuban, Puerto Rican, South American?
Right there.
It's dance music. Upbeat stuff on the hi-hat.
Yeah, I see that.
It's the dance.
Yeah. Oh, what about a little bossa nova?
That takes us to Brazil usually, and it's real sweet and real mellow, and it is danceable.